Hey, it's Ralph and Marcus. Today we talk with Gameday Men's Health about to men. I'm speaking directly to men in their 40s and 50s that want to feel a little bit better. This might be the answer. It may not be, but we'll find out on this episode of the Goodsugar Podcast. Hey, it's Ralph and Marcus from the Goodsugar Podcast. This is an interesting episode, Marcus. Why? It's near and dear to my heart. Very rarely do I just say, hey, I want to talk to these guys, because this is something we'll tell the story on the air with the guys when we bring them on, that as I get older, you're married with kids. You gave up on life already. I'm still young and viral.
That's a terrible thing to say. It's the opposite. You exhaust so much energy and effort on nonsense that I don't have to do. So I could put my attention on deepening, I don't know, creativity. I don't know. I'm not, you are making it into a comparison, not me.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just being a jerk off. So I had this experience that we'll get into, and I felt like this would be prime info for the Goodsugar audience. Okay, Marcus, so this is the story. We've talked about this often. When we've been doing the show now for a couple years, the thing that people react to the most is when I go out and try whatever the new health trend or thing that's supposed to be better for you, whether it was cupping, colonics, ice plunging, whatever I've done so far, the IV stuff, and then report how it feels to me or whatever. And so this came down. I'm going to tell the story to you all in real time.
Wait, just really quick. Don't you remember that great episode when you let those two call girls sting you with a scorpion? That was hilarious.
Well, that one was called a regular Tuesday. That's what that was. That's not anything special.
Well, we certainly mellowed out, haven't we?
Yeah. So this is what happened. I was on a double date with a girl that I'd not seen in a while. We're not dating anymore, but it was a group, four of us went together. And the other guy was about my age. I'm 50, soon to be 55. He was 53. And our dates were both wildly too young for either of us. That's just the way it was, right? And the guy is talking to me while the two girls were yapping at each other, right? And he's telling me, dude, he's like, I started doing this thing I'm from Florida. It's called Gameday Men's Health. You go in, they give you your blood test, and they'll tell you what's missing in your life and blah, 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 in terms of like if you need hormones, if you're low on testosterone, blah, blah, blah. Call this guy. His name's Tyler. Go meet them and talk with them, right? So I text Tyler. Unbeknownst to me, it wasn't even open yet in New York City. Then we start texting back and forth. I say, what's funny? I just had a full blood work. I got a full physical. So it's perfect. I come in and show you my results. And in the interest of full disclosure, I thought when his response was, well, we like to do our own results, our own lab work, because you don't know where else is going, blah, blah, blah. The knee-jerk reaction was, well, this is a fucking scam. But then it was, we don't charge you for it. We just want you to do the blood work here. I'm like, oh, well, that sounds far more comforting than what I thought initially, right? So I go schedule it. Me and Tyler talk. And by the way, before I get into it, the guy said, I've been doing this now, I think it was 5 or 6 months. And he goes, I feel better than I felt in years. I'm stronger. I have more energy, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, yeah, I could use that. I'm fucking 55 with nothing better than going to meet people. And they have to have a medical doctor on staff. All these things sound good. So I go meet Tyler. Nice guy, beautiful establishment, hot girl behind the fucking counter. All things you want to see. And I go and we do the blood work, but here's what's weird. And Tyler, you could kind of talk about this, and we'll talk with Haleem as well. My blood work came out weird. Like it came out where I'm basically Superman, I think, and there was something wrong, and we're gonna have to do it again because there are anomalies that happen. But before we get into any of it, let's describe the birth of this, what made it happen, and then we could put the button on my story. Does that make sense? All right, so we'll start with you, Haleem. How did this start? Where's your background? What brought us to this of Gameday Men's Health?
Okay, 2018, Evan Miller, PhD. He basically started this whole movement, Gameday Men's Health, out in California. He's got, I think, 6 corporate clinics, and they do men's health, hormone replacement therapy, weight loss, erectile enhancement, vitamins. Those are the 4 core services. We're adding more as we speak. It's becoming more and more longevity practice. It's a medical practice. I'm a physician. I've been in practice for 10 years. I'm board certified internal medicine. I got a little bit tired of practicing. My wife is also an academic physician. I'm a poor kid from Brooklyn, born in India.
Yeah, we're all from Brooklyn.
Born in India, raised in Brooklyn. Did finance for a little while, and then went off to med school like a good Indian boy, and then came back, did internal medicine. Practiced in the hospital setting, in the clinic setting, made it up to chief medical officer. Looked at myself in the mirror. My wife says, I want to have a baby. And are you going to be around if we have this baby? Because you're 250 pounds and something's going to happen, So,
by the way, how tall are you? Because if I'm 6'5", 250 is not bad. But if
I'm 5'9".
Okay, there you go. They need to qualify for the weight. That's all I'm saying.
5'9" with heels on.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, me too. Yeah. I'm 6'9" with heels. Okay, continue.
But no, I quit my corporate job, lost about 55 pounds, had the baby, and started opening these clinics around the same time. So my baby is a year old. The clinic is a year and a week old.
And now there's a bunch of these game days around the country.
This Tyler, is the largest.
Tyler, you have 3 or 4 of them, right? If not more. Am I right?
Yeah, with Dr. Hal here, we have a couple in Miami, in the Miami area, and then we've just launched in New York City, which we are so pumped about. So far, the response has been really, really strong. So yeah, and then that's adding to the already 230 Game Day Men's Health across the country.
Right, and so Marcus, you go in, you take a blood test, and then the doctor there, or the I don't know if there's someone with some sort of medical background, because she was a nurse, I don't know exactly, but a doctor has to be there, and they go through your blood work to show you, are you low in testosterone? Do you need this? Do you need that? Like, we're specifically tailored to, for the most part, men that are on the older side. The few guys that were there when I was there all look like former football players that were hanging out in the waiting room. And I assume that's a big bulk of your audience is men like us, guys getting a little older that don't feel the same spring in their step that they did in their 20s and 30s. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we see 2 types of guys. Type number 1, is sort of like me. I'm 40 years old. I'm in good shape. I plan to stay that way. I need this body to last me to 120. And so what am I doing today to make sure that happens, right? I want to maintain, I want to continue to feel and look good. And then we have the guy who walks in who's lost his mojo. He's a bit overweight. He's probably has some other conditions that we talked to him about. Erectile dysfunction might be one of them. Energy levels, just general libido. He just doesn't feel like he used to. He doesn't feel like the guy that he was always meant to be. And so we're taking that guy from 0 to hero within a couple months.
Right. And so there's 2 major, I remember looking at the sheet, there's 2 major aspects to this. There's the testosterone side, then there's the peptide side, right? There are 2 pieces to the puzzle. Is that correct, or am I oversimplifying it?
I think the peptide side is a little bit less. It's more about the erectile enhancement side. We don't call it dysfunction. We call it enhancement. Because
every girl I've ever dated called it dysfunction and then pointed and laughed.
Well, the joke is, 52% of guys are going to have erectile dysfunction at some point in their life. If you ask 10 guys if they've got erectile dysfunction, nobody has it. We're not going to talk about that.
It's like nobody watches porn. Same thing, right?
So what's the new branding? Because I hear the old school branding. I agree with you. The dysfunction word, it already it's.
I think it's
the
called
old word. What's the new word? You just skip it and you call it enhancement.
It's called floppy dong. Floppy dong is what it's called.
Erectile performance.
That company, Liquid Death, they made it huge with a disruptive name. I bet you could have a business that just was like called Floppy Dick and people would laugh and go there.
My parents would be proud.
You know what? If you have the biggest house at the top of the hill, they'll be proud of you.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry.
But, these guys come to see us and, they may not have what they think of as full blown erectile dysfunction. Like there are those guys that come in, but like there's guys that come in and say, it just doesn't work like it used to. Like I'm 45 and it doesn't work. Like it's not as hard as it was when I was 22. And I want to be sexually active. I want to get it on with my girlfriend. And I want to get it on with my wife. And so we help those guys get it back to
what is the
get
theory
their performance back.
The theory that the best cure for any sort of erectile issues is a 20-year-old stripper. Is there any truth to that one, where maybe it's just the situation that they're in and that they've lost their, like, or do you notice with every one of these people, it's a marketable notification? You do the blood work, they have very low testosterone.
So erectile dysfunction, let's go back to that, right? So you have psychological, which you're talking about there. Maybe you're not attracted to your partner. Something's going on there. Then you have hormonal, which is about 30% of it. Sometimes that's low testosterone. You've got vascular, which is something that you need to work on sooner than later, because that's one of the first signs of heart disease. Your penis will actually tell you if you're going to have heart disease. If you start having erectile dysfunction early on, you're probably going to have heart disease later on. It's all the same.
What does early on mean, by the way? Early on is 40s? Or
I've seen some guys start in their 30s, just bad habits, overweight, they're drinking, drug use, typical New Yorker. So.
And here's the thing, me as a case study, I lost I was always in decent shape, and my father passed away, and I gained, I think it's about 150 pounds. Like, I don't know exactly how much, but because I stopped looking at the scale when it broke 325, right? So I just didn't want to look anymore. And then COVID hit. So I know it was more than that, because we're all baking bread like jackasses. And I was definitely gained weight. I don't know what it was.
You were one of the sourdough guys?
Yeah, I was doing all that shit. Did desserts, and I like to bake and cook and whatever, but I just didn't look at the scale after it broke 320 something, right? So if you told me I hit 350, I would believe you. I don't know if it's true. Now I'm down about 250, right? So I lost about 100 pounds. But when I went for my physical, it was February or March of 2020, right before the lockdown, my doctor's like, your cholesterol's high, my testosterone was like 100, something really low. Everything was terrible. Then, we start the show, Marcus and I start running, I start eating better. I lost 100 pounds. I'm feeling far more confident in general, dating more, getting out more than when I went. I mean, I'm sure there was an anomaly, because I got my blood work, and it was in the mid 500s, 5 to 6 or 600s. And when I went to you guys, it was like 1100, which I don't think is right. Something was probably causing the problem. But I do think this conversation in general, which is usually snickered at and laughed at, in erectile issue, something about having the open conversation about testosterone levels, about erectile issues, to childish giggling, get rid of it, destigmatize it, is an important step. And I think, I know there's probably a lot of people that think that you can holistically cure a lot of this, but the truth is, as we get older, our body, if I'm not mistaken, just manufactures this stuff less. That's just the way it is. Is that right?
Correct. At age 30, you start dropping at about 1% a year. Age 40, it starts to accelerate between 1% to 2% a year. What you're talking about possibly is you depends on the time that you took your testosterone levels at your doctor's office. There's a diurnal change throughout the day. It'll be 20-30% higher in the morning, lower in the afternoon. All those things matter. As you get older,
I did in the morning
less.
with the doctor. I did in the afternoon with you guys.
Okay. Well, you must be Superman.
That's what I've been telling people my whole life, is that I think I'm Superman. But now, besides the TRT, which is testosterone replacement therapy, there was that whole section of peptides, which is like HGH and stuff like that. And that's where I get a little weary to think of those things. While I've heard great stories, they are nowhere. Then, I mean, I don't even know if I give a shit about it being approved or whatever, because who knows, technology is always 10 years ahead of science and law, whatever. But where's your head on those peptides and those things as well?
So as a physician, we've used sermorelin extensively, but that's something that was used in children who had growth hormone deficiency. I think peptides is actually probably one of the safest offerings we have. We generally don't do it long term. There's this fear that it's going to uncover a cancer, that's going to cause a growth of a wild growth of a cancer. We haven't seen it yet, and we've treated thousands of folks with sermorelin, and it was used, like I said, it was used in children. They tend to be a little bit safer with that kind of stuff. So I know there's a lot of gray area within the peptides.
Doctor, sorry, can you go back a sentence. You said there's a fear or a concern for, what did you say, for cancer, for the
Like a
development
growth.
for the, okay.
No growth, yeah, like discovering like something smoldering, and giving a growth hormone, a peptide will accelerate that.
What happens if somebody is early in cancer and hasn't been diagnosed, and they go on those types of therapies? Like, how scrupulous is your industry, people who have access to the testosterone drugs, to thoroughly test people that they don't actually have, stage 2, whatever? I'm not a doctor, so I'm talking in street language.
Right. No, if you want to go to like the testosterone, there's this common myth that comes up over and over about prostate cancer and testosterone causing prostate cancer. We've had multiple guys who we've uncovered prostate cancer on, meaning that they had prostate cancer, they didn't realize they had it. We do PSA screenings with every patient that comes in to make sure that they don't have it, and we've actually found prostate cancer on multiple guys, and then sent them off to urology to be treated. My dad had prostate cancer at 59, so it hits pretty close to home for me.
So you wouldn't prescribe anything to someone who has prostate cancer? Go deal with that first, and then we could talk. Is that
No,
really
it brings up. I want to understand that, if I can, for a second. It brings up some really exciting points, and thank you very much, both of you, for being on the show. And please be very patient with me, because I don't have any degrees, so I talk in a very broken. I'm from Brooklyn, so I talk from the street.
Also, by the way,
but
Marcus, really quickly, it's funny for you to be talking, we're mentioning penises 100 times, and it looks like Dora the Explorer is on the TV behind you, which is hilarious.
It's the autocrats. The 4.5-year-old is sitting on the couch. That's how I bribed her to let me sit and do this podcast. Thank you, TV. What were we talking about? Oh, okay, right. So it's not so much for me. Let's pretend the outside industry doesn't exist, and then so I'm trying to understand where we're going with the whole conversation. I don't necessarily have a point I'm driving at. I'm just, sort of whatever comes up. It's like, what comes up for me is isn't there a danger with messing with the body's hormones at certain ages, and then certainly always risks or side effects possible if someone is taking synthesized hormones? Is that, am I accurate for even thinking that?
So when you have high blood pressure and you take a blood pressure medication to lower it, or when you have high cholesterol and you take a medication to lower that, if you're lacking in testosterone, you're hypogonadal, you have a testosterone deficiency that we're supplementing. We don't go to those super therapeutic levels that some in the industry. I know where you're going with this, because there's been plenty of.
I don't.
I do. So when I got involved with Gameday, my wife is an academic physician. I've had a decent career in medicine, have a little bit of a reputation outside. I wanted to make sure that anything that we got involved with was going to be academic. So we follow American Urological Association guidelines. Like down here in Florida, the connection we have with the Cleveland Clinic or Baptist Health with the urology department there, we stay in our lane. We're not going to invent the wheel here. We treat what we can. Like boarded internal medicine, I know what I'm doing there. And anytime we get outside of my lane, it goes up to, the guys, the subspecialists that can manage that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're pretty safe about that.
And now you've been in business, you said, a year and change, right? I'm imagining at this point it's thousands of clients you've seen at this point, right? And I'm sure that there are metrics that you can talk about that show me where this is, like the collective metadata, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have figures like that?
What exactly are you looking for?
Like how much it's helped a certain amount of people, like the average guy comes in with this and then left with this, and most of our clients stay with us this amount of months or this amount of year. I mean, it can't be more than a year because you haven't been open more than a year, but you know what I'm saying? Because again, this is it speaks to me because I am a single man in my 50s, and I do feel I've slowed down a lot, and it is how, even though now I have more energy than I've had in years, because I am running 30 miles a week and I eat pretty healthy, and work out 3 days a week, things that I couldn't do pre my dad getting sick, which was, I lost a lot of stuff there during that time. So on one side of me, I feel better than I have in years, but I do realize the energy levels are not what they were when I was 40. How could they be? So then part of me wonders, am I cheating the system or what? Like, I don't know. It's an interesting topic. That's why I was happy to bring you guys on to just have this conversation. I knew Marcus would probably be a little more opposed to it than I because of his holistic approach to life and that stuff. So I just thought it'd be a good debate to have.
Not fair for you to typecast me here because,
because you've had erectile problems since you were in your 20s?
No. Whatever. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, let's debate it because I think it's a great debate,
it's not even
right?
a debate. I have to learn about the subject. It's outside. What I'm hearing is it's more informative to me because I think about this stuff for myself. I think about the health and wellness industry. I certainly think about what's being sold. I try to identify the things that I think that are helpful because I'm in the health and wellness industry. I have a vegan restaurant. I sit in there all day long and people come in there to shop to, find immunity. So that's what I've surmised in my guest in the 15 years I'm doing that, is that people see that experience as I'm doing something good for my immune system. In your category, there's a customer base that feels anxious about something. So that's the starting point. And you guys have taken the Hippocratic Oath and you're trying to help them through a doorway, which gets to the point of the matter, which is health and wellness. So we're on the same team.
Totally.
So I want to answer something real quick. So that's really cool that you mentioned that you're vegan. I have a lot of vegan friends. I have a lot of plant forward friends. They force me to go vegan for weeks at a time when we hang out.
This guy, first of all, you're going to be a billionaire.
Why?
You have the face, you have the talk. I love it. Keep me in your phone book and bring me along. I'm very good at retail and executing.
You called him a billionaire. You tell me I'm a genius. You're everywhere with the comments.
You know what? I'm hypnotizing myself. I'm creating the world that I want to live in.
Tyler's down the window. Say something nice about him. He's got good hair. I don't know.
I didn't get to it yet. I'm saving it. I'm saving it. He's waiting. I'm saving it.
I'm sending this recording to mom and dad immediately after.
You know what? I want to be candid with you guys. When I started getting a little tight in what I was saying, I felt like a little uncomfort by your response. I felt like maybe I was stepping on your toes. I don't want to suggest in any way that I think that you don't have integrity. I see it in your face that you do. What I am doing is what I do, which is I pick at you to figure out whether or not you're a snake oil salesman. And when I think that you're not, I'll come and give you a hug and throw you whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I talk about. And so I want to be educated. I know nothing. You know, the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yes.
That's my favorite new thing I picked up on the internet. I was like, I have always been a schmuck, but at least I'm sort of fearless I'm writing notes. Here's what I'm writing. I'm saying,
oh, wait,
Doctor,
Marcus, Haleem was talking about vegan, and you stopped there, so I'd like to hear the rest of that.
Sorry.
To his point,
I got excited.
Whenever I've been forced to go vegan for 3, 4, 5 weeks at a time, everything is better. Skin, hair, mood.
Let's go.
How I'm going to the bathroom, any sort of erectile issues, all of those seem to improve totally. So now you look at the pathophysiology.
Then why would you call it being forced to go vegan? You'd want to stay vegan, I would think.
Now think about the normal American male. We have a terrible diet. We are a little bit chubbier. We're creating these problems for ourselves. So my goal with this is to treat the average guy. I'm not treating Superman. I'm not. We don't have a TS cohort. We have me and you. That's who we're treating. The 80%.
You know what, Doc? You got the greatest business in the world. You have a front door where a person walks in, they expect something superficial and ridiculous, and you have an opportunity to fulfill their wildest dreams and then drop some heavy messages on them about existentialism and have them go soul searching. So, hallelujah, you're both prophets, and you also get to profit. Nothing wrong with that. It's the American way. And I actually know doctors and people in your field, not very well, but I've always had a set of questions, which is, first of all, in your business, do you teach the nature of anxiety to people, so that as part of what you're giving them, you're saying, you know what, I'm going to actually help to cure you too, not to have you attached to medications and things like that.
So yeah, number one is diet, exercise, reduce stress, sleep better. If you look at all my tweets, that's all I talk about.
Yeah, it's also in their Marcus, in their literature that I was there. It doesn't say this is your cure-all. It's like you need to have a better diet. You need to be more mindful. Like, it's not just take these drugs and see in a couple weeks.
How do you implement that?
By talking about education over and over and over again.
No, but I'm saying, wouldn't it be amazing if you had a great restaurant in your city and you just sat there all day and people came in and you served them beautiful juices and smoothies and fruits and whatever your diet paradigm is, even if there's animal protein? Isn't that the most important implementation, is that you provide it?
What
you're
they
giving
put
them
in their
you're
body.
providing
Are you
them with
asking this doctor to get into the restaurant business?
Yeah, man.
I
Come on,
think
this
the
is
interesting
public
thing-
TV.
But the interesting thing about it is, like, what we're
I love
doing
these
here
guys.
is like flipping the script, right? Like the traditional conversation with a guy who's overweight is like, eat better and go to the gym. And then he just continues to do what he's normally been doing, right? We're flipping the script and we're saying, what if we gave you a win first? What if we allowed you to get some like a notch on your belt or a couple? And then all of a sudden, what I notice is, because I'm there every day, the guys come back and then they start going to the gym because effort starts to feel good again. They start eating better because they feel like they have something to look forward to, like their lives are getting better, right? So like this first step that we've created is flipping the script for guys to start living that better life that like everyone's preaching to him to do.
Right.
You're the force. You guys are the force multiplier. You're the leverage when a person is in that particular place in their life where they can't get up or they can't do that thing. You're saying this is your elevator to
you're raising
that first
the
level.
baseline. You're basically raising the baseline. By the way, Shannon, our producer, has also talked about it. I don't know if I can mention on the air, but she wants to do like one of those, what are they called? Shannon, what's the fucking
semaglutide
for like a couple of months, just to like kickstart her body so she could feel better, because she's vegan already and she works out, but she missed a little bit for other reasons, whatever. But am I right, Shannon, that that's what you said in the DM here, like that's what you're looking for, like a little kickstart, right?
Yeah, the way that you explained it was like so much. It's exactly what I've been thinking, but I haven't been able to verbalize it that way. But it's just like I've like gained weight recently. I've just been in the dumps and I can't get myself out of it. I'm like, you know what if I do Ozempic for 1 or 2 months just to like get it off a little bit, and then I feel like then I won't feel as shitty and I can get back into my routine like normal.
Right. And also, guys, imagine having to work for me all the time. No wonder she's miserable. Right?
Doesn't it takes more than 1 or 2 months for that to start to change your life? And then are you suggesting they have programs where you just jump in for 2 months, or aren't people
they do? No, you could do Ozempic for like 3 months and then get out, I think.
It changes a lot of people's lives. I've seen it.
Every recommendation that we give is personalized, right? Which is why we're not like often people ask us like, who are your competitors? It's honestly the online folks who are not like doing the proper follow-ups, and they're like, you can choose 1, 2, or 3. Like there's nothing personalized about it. Folks walk in the door, like Ralph, you went through it. We did your blood work. You had the medical intake. You know, we got a sense of who you were, and then we had a conversation with you.
Yeah, it was a very enjoyable experience. In fact, it didn't feel like a conveyor belt of some sort. It felt personalized. But I'm leaving for 2 weeks. When I come back in January, we're going to try again, and I did a better bait to see what was wrong with me. But I do think, even as a 3-month trial for this show, it would be interesting to see what happens, and I hate this phrase because it's been so fucking overused since the pandemic, but see what my new normal might be. And that would be fair. Maybe my baseline goes up, even if it's fucking 15%, 5%, that I'm feeling better. Like, who the fuck knows? Why wouldn't I try it if it's not going to be detrimental to my health? It's worth trying, I feel. That's why I did cryotherapy. It's why I did any of these things, to see what happens.
Ralph, you have kids?
No kids.
No kids. Marcus, you have that one child?
I got
3 kids.
I have 3 kids.
Five kids.
I have 3 children and 2 stepchildren, which I'm very excited about.
How old are you?
Me, I'm 55.
55, and you have a 4-year-old. So I'm 44. I have a 1-year-old. nothing will have you so in touch with your own mortality as having children, because now you have this human being that's completely reliant on you, and it's not their fault that they are. You brought them in this world. And I did a tweet like at 3:00 in the morning when I can't sleep because I'm thinking about my kid's future. I start thinking about numbers, and there was a tweet I did. The average American has 27,000 days in their life. I have 11,000 left as a 44-year-old. Hell yeah, I want a cheat code. So some people look at semaglutide.
Right. I see what you're saying. 11,000 left. I got you.
Yeah. So I mean, if there's a cheat code out there, I want it. I want it for me. I want it for my kid. I want it for my wife.
Yeah, but the question is it a cheat code or is it the accelerator switch?
It's a boost. It's a boost.
It's not, I'm very new to this type of contemplation of this type of subject. It's an honor to talk to you and your esteemed colleague, and I appreciate the opportunity. And I say that because I have to collect more information. My first instinct is to say, yes, we're on the same team. We're doing the same thing. We just did an episode where we were talking to somebody that has an occupation in sort of a neuroscience-y kind of business. And I hear a lot of the science that's in there to layer it in there to say, okay, now what we've done is we've opened the doorway for a person who was closed down, who might have been in addiction or couldn't break free from chronic anxiety. They finally, it's all caught up with them now, and they're starting to decline. And you're coming in and you're saying, look, we're not just going to go and sit down with this guy and suddenly start singing and teaching him how to do Om. It's not going to work.
Right.
So let's take this other door that they like, which is fitness, and get six packs, and you're gonna be a hero again, and you can lift heavy things. Your back's not gonna, virility. So I think it's wonderful, provided there has to be, and this is for me, that moment where you, as the shamans / healers, take out the other textbooks now and say, okay, now you're in the club, start saving yourself. That's my.
So if I'm going to extrapolate from what you're saying, is that let's not just, give the medicine to fix the problem. Let's get to the cause of the other things, meaning the mental health, the being in the moment, the thinking about you as a whole, as opposed to, hey, let's just give him fucking testosterone and send him on his way. Is that fair, Marcus?
I think that's what I'm scared to say that I said that, but yeah, it's new. It's
that's all.
I'm not an activist. I'm just saying it wildly here.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I'll give my own personal experience. Like 5 years ago, I was 35. I was kind of skinny fat. Like you kind of blow me over with a light breeze. I was getting sick every 6 weeks with a cold, and it would knock me out, and I wasn't living well. I was introduced to a doctor, and I started on one of these HGH peptides that we talked about earlier. And it totally turned around my health. To the common area, I started feeling stronger. I stopped getting sick because my body was now able to produce the HGH that it wasn't producing before. And now I live healthier than I ever have before. My diet is better than it ever has been before. I steam. Just around the corner, I go to Othership and get my woo-woo on, because I agree with you, Marcus. It's a lot of it's up here as well, but that start was able to get all the pieces aligned so that I could live the way I want to live.
Let me ask
are you a journaler? Do you journal
every day?
And you obviously exercise. You're in great shape. And
are you still on these things? Do you do? You're getting is it once a month thing you do?
I'm a patient. Yeah. So I'm a patient of my own space. I think Hal's a patient of his own space as well.
Absolutely.
I talk super openly about it. Yeah. And it depending on kind of where I'm at in my life, my testosterone isn't low. So I wouldn't qualify. Like we always say, we're not a Wendy's. People don't just walk in the door and say, I want testosterone, and they get it. That's right. Not how we work, right? You can go down to the back of the gym and get it that way. If that's really what you need. We are a high-end medical experience where people have to qualify. And we have options for you depending on what your issue is.
Right. And I can attest to that. They were telling me things that made sense for me, but they wanted me to come back and do the blood work again to make sure that they get a clean sample because something might have been awry.
Yeah.
Your industry is about to explode.
Yeah, and we want to be the people that people look at when they think of quality. If you want it the cheapest way, go online. All the power to you. If you want it done the right way, come into something like a Gameday where we have a brick and mortar experience. You're coming in, you're doing your blood work, you're being seen by a board certified licensed medical professional, and experience the difference between the two.
And by the way, it's wild to me. I don't know if this is just a promotion for New York, but the fact that it's free to get the blood work, is that always the case, or is that just because you're opening in New York right now?
No, I mean, we believed from day zero that every guy has the right to know their numbers. And this is actually really important because the number of guys who walk in the door that say, yeah, I went to see my primary care physician, they will not test my testosterone levels.
They won't. You have to beg them to do that. And take me a PSA.
It's like ridiculous to me that, my PCP wouldn't give me all the information, whether it's good or bad or whatever. Right. It doesn't matter. It's my body. I want to know. And so, we believe in democratizing that knowledge. And then once you get that test, educating you on what it actually means.
Right. I mean, it's funny is that because when I went for my physical, she did not want to give me a testosterone test. And I said, I have a history of lower testosterone. I want that test. And they're like, are you sure you need it? I need to put, you just fucking give me I always say, test everything. Test if I'm pregnant. Test fucking everything. I want to know. There shouldn't be a test that you're not doing, but they won't do it for some reason. It's really weird.
If you're paying for it, you have the right to data. And right. I struggled with that as a physician, as an internist in the hospital and training. Everybody always told you, order something if you're looking for something. Ask a question and then you order the exam, you order the imaging. That was what we were taught in academic training. But then the more and more I think about it, patients deserve to know. And that's why you have these 100, 200 biomarkers. It's just that you better have somebody that can hold your hand through answers when they the interpretation of it. And that's where I think a lot of it's lacking. We can't just send you a bunch of stuff and then you poop in a cup and send a little bit of blood and they send you a pretty thing, but you need someone to actually explain that to you. So
what are you going to say, Marcus?
It's just it's fascinating because you must be like total geeks when it comes to understanding hormones. So I have questions in my messy notes, just concepts I want to ask. First of all, how is testosterone production affected by a person who has been in an adrenaline and cortisol dump most of their life? How does the depletion of that, how do those hormones work together?
If I had a chalkboard, I could draw out the
HPG. Is that a good question for a layman?
That's a phenomenal question.
Thank you. Okay, Ralph, you always take me for granted, Ralph.
Let's make it even simpler for the layman. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So cortisol is high, things are going to be bad, and everything sort of lowers, right? Every hormone is affected. So now cortisol is high, testosterone production is probably going to be on the lower end. The guy's going to be a little bit heavier. Now, adipose tissue creates worse, more of an estrogenic effect. So now, even if you're producing testosterone, you're going to convert that into estrogen even more. So it's almost a vicious cycle. Now you have a bigger guy, a chubbier guy, an angry guy, who's just not optimized, not happy.
So it is a major thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really important. I oftentimes think about that because I would say from age 2 to about age 52, I was in an adrenaline dump my entire life.
Why is that?
Well, I come from a traumatic childhood. I was born in Brooklyn. My mother was 21. I could give me 7 hours, I'll cover that. And then I spent, my 20s through my early 40s in adrenaline sports that I survived, like skydiving and things like that. So I'll just say that my general life, even if I'm sober, was adrenaline dump between work and relationship problems and just stress in general. And so
where in Brooklyn?
That's the only question you have after all.
I want to know if we grew up next to each other.
You know what?
I lived on Avenue R and East 10th Street is where I grew up.
I was like the deepest online admission I've ever had in my life. Like, what street were you born on? I didn't. You know what?
Isn't it?
I was only lived in Brooklyn for the first 4 years Then we moved to Long Island for 5 years. And then my dad upended us to Beverly Hills, California until I was 19. So I've obviously been back in New York for 30 whatever million years that I've been back, but so I'm a true New Yorker, but I have a little Beverly Hills in my blood for whatever it's worth. Which is probably the only reason why I could put somewhat of a sense. If I was all Brooklyn, it wouldn't nothing to Brooklyn today.
Together.
No, this is 1970s Brooklyn. We were terrible.
I was there. All right, so I'm going to say this to put a button on this whole thing. It's only part one of the story because of my erroneous data, we'll call it. I'm going to go back after the new year to do the test again and to try it out. And you think realistically 2 months into it, I'm going to feel something?
Don't give him any discounts.
No,
he's got to stay neutral. No discounts, Ralph. Come on, pay bills.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Every guy comes in with a different reason, right? A different motivation. And, depending on what that looks like, what their blood work looks like, what they as humans look like, will depend on what we're going to recommend and what they go on with. So some guys, depending on what they do, start feeling a benefit immediately. Some guys, it takes 6 to 8 weeks. But, in my experience, at the 2-month mark, I usually get a hug. I usually get a hug on their way out because, for most of these guys, we've changed their life, whether they can start having sex with their wife again, or they can go back to the gym and feel confident, or, they lost a couple pounds.
And maybe in my case, I start having sex with Marcus's wife again, which would be weird, but you never know.
Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be
great?
Great?
You know what? I let him get away with it.
Wild.
He desperately needs to say that. So
yeah, by the way, because also I would say this, which I've said since the beginning of the show, is like, for all I know, what I consider my baseline and think is normal, because we're all so fucking subjective, could be so much better, and I just don't know it. Same thing with just about losing weight and doing all that. You don't know what you consider your normal doesn't have to be your normal. So that's the part I'm excited about, curious to see what happens come March. If Marcus and I fought once and he barely beat me, but maybe this time I kick his ass. You never know.
Can we come to that?
Yeah. Sure you can.
Great.
So it's gamedaysmen'shealth.com, right? You go there. And if you are a dude that's looking to change your life a little bit and maybe want to just go know your numbers. By the way, fuck your testosterone numbers. You should know your PSA number too. That is a strong indicator of your fucking health. So go know that. Mine was less than just a 1, which is great. Thank God. It's a good thing. So that for that reason alone, you just opened in New York. There's locations. I think you said there's 200 locations around the country, right?
Almost plus. 250 locations so far. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, and on a side note, my other network, Gas Digital, our entire audience is guys in their 40s and 50s around the country. You guys should be promoting your shit on my fucking network. My God. I mean, it's crazy that you're not. Talk about a captive audience there. We do 4 million listeners a week, for God's sakes.
That's incredible.
Let's do it.
It sounds like you're trying to get some freebies, Ralph.
All right, guys, follow me. Follow me over at I Am. Well, before I do our wrap, anything else you guys want to plug before we wrap this up?
Tyler?
No, we're good. All right. Follow me over at
Thank you very much, guys.
Ralph Sutton. My other podcast on health and wellness is called the SDR Show, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll Show. It comes out twice a week. And Marcus, do some plugs for Goodsugar. Let me hear you do it.
I'm not really into it. We have great stuff. Just come there. You'll see. You'll understand.
Yeah, and it's on the corner of 3rd Avenue, 69th Street. It's vegan, no single-use plastics. Thank you, everyone, for doing this, and we'll see you all next time on the Goodsugar Podcast.